What's going on? Hey, happy Tuesday. Drop your college recruiting questions down below. Going to get to as many of them as we possibly can. What can we answer for you guys? Olivia, hey, how's it going? Truly Aditi, hey, how's it going? Great to see you guys. Drop your college recruiting questions down below. Going to get to as many of them as possible. Derek, good to see you, sir. Rob, good to see you as well. Amazing. Love seeing y'all. Drop your college recruiting questions down below. Again, going to get to as many of them as we possibly can. And Connor should be joining me here, I assume, in a second or two. Hope you guys are having a wonderful week, wonderful Tuesday, and let's dive in. Thoughts on soccer program overseas to get to a D1? Are you saying like you're in the U.S. and you're talking about potentially going overseas? You don't need to do that. You can if you want to. It's a route. You can take that route. Or are you saying that you're already international and you're trying to go from international to the U.S.? In that case, soccer recruits heavily internationally. There are some teams, there was an article going around recently. There are some teams that are exclusively recruiting international athletes. And so like you can definitely move internationally in that case. But yeah, I don't have a ton of thoughts on it. You can do it. Of course, harder because you got to play in front of people still. But you could do it. Can you help me get a scholarship for cross country? Yeah. Hey, does a D2 baseballer have to enter the portal to transfer to a Division I? Yes.
So, what's up, guys? By the way,
hey Connor,
what's going
on?
Go
ahead, man.
What is going on? Yes, so there's a couple different ways that you can view this. When you're talking about like going to a D1, if the school gives you like said, hey, we want you to do this, we're not going to have a spot for you, then you don't have to enter the portal. But if you're just strictly wanting to move up a level, and the coaches still have a spot and everything else, then you can move up. But yeah, it's happy to be here, by the way.
It's good to see you. It's been a minute, huh?
I know, it's been like a week and a half.
Where you been, bro? You've been slacking.
We went to 5 p.m. and like
we went to 5 p.m. and yeah, that wasn't it. And that wasn't it. I'm glad to be back. Hi. Hey, great to see you. How tall do I have to be to get an American football scholarship? Saying an American football scholarship, got to be international, right? Like you wouldn't, like if someone lives in the U.S., they're not saying, how do I get it, So probably.
Right.
So then the question is, if they're international, they're talking about an American football scholarship. Are they talking, well, they said American, so I guess actual football, not soccer.
Yeah.
Depends on the sport or depends on the position. Depends on a lot of different stuff. Yeah, it depends on a lot of different stuff. What would you recommend focusing on to try to gain coaches' notice for D1 or D2 golf?
When you say like coaches' notice, are we talking about like?
My guess is that he's basically just saying, how do I get on college coaches' radars as a golf athlete?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with email outreach. If they know your name, the scores, the events that you're playing in actually are pretty big in golf, because it's one thing, right? If you go to your local course and you shoot a 72, right? And then you say, hey, I shot a 72, where it's like, look, this is your local course. Until you have like a verified event, it becomes a little bit more prominent in golf, versus another sport like baseball, right? Where, hey, I hit 95. If you hit 95 in your backyard and you have a radar gun attached to it, like you still hit 95. Whereas in golf, it's a little bit more about how did that go? These verified events are actually pretty substantial as far as recruiting and then telling every coach about them. Anything to add on that, Jack? Because that's actually a good question.
I think you nailed it for golf for the most part. The biggest thing for me is I think the stuff that most people talk about in terms of recruiting and getting on coaches' radars is kind of the same. Like you're going to hear everybody say, send emails, post content on social media. Like all that stuff is going to be the same. You know what I mean? Like there's only so many ways to get recruited. And we're constantly trying to like push the boundaries and find other ways to get recruited. But there's only so many platforms, right? And so you're sort of like when you hear people say, well, send emails, and you're like, well, it's not revolutionary. knowing what to do is different than knowing how to do it.
Mhm.
Right? You can know that you're supposed to send emails, but the way that you do that is what will determine whether you get offers or not. The other thing
Right.
I'll tell you is getting interest is like the first 15 to 20% of the process, right? Like a lot of families, when they get interest from a school, they might believe that they went from 0 to 80% of the way through. And then they're like right on the doorstep of an offer. And for most families, unless you're a 2026 right now, right? In that case, maybe your timeline is going to be compressed. But for everybody else, when you get interest from a school, you're like 15% of the way through, 15% of the way through the process. You still have 85% to go. That is where the difference maker lies. And we talked about this when we first started doing these lives in the beginning of January. I made this claim that the number one skill to learn in 2026, if you want to get recruited, is the ability to turn general interest into offers. And I think in past years, the number one skill would have been getting exposure. Like
Yeah.
the number one skill would have been starting conversations with coaches. If you did that, then you were pretty much going to be in great shape, right? And now, just with the evolution of the recruiting process, getting interest is step number one. It's
Yeah.
not step number 9 out of 10. It's step number 1 out of 10. And so everything you said about golf recruiting, I think is right on. Scores are important. Golf is one of those sports where it's not just stat heavy. It's not just video heavy. It's not just events heavy. Like I think golf is actually one of the more well-rounded sports out of all of them. They're going to look at your scores. They're going to want to see your swings on video, and they're going to want to see you at big major events performing well. And so golf is actually probably a more well-rounded sport than most other sports would be out there.
Yeah. When I say verified event too, I think that it pertains to high school events, right? But just like you can't just go out and shoot, just say like you're going to a practice round and you say, hey, I shot a 75 and you have video of it. It's like great, but it has to be somewhere where there's a verified score that someone's keeping up with that adds a credibility layer to what you're telling the coach, right? And we talk about this all the time with like our football athletes when they're weight training. It's like, hey, I squatted 465, and it's like, great, did you have video of it? And they're like, well, no. And I'm like, okay, then it's not useful, right? Like it doesn't do anything. It looks great on paper, but you have to be able to back that statement with something, right? And that just adds a credibility layer with the coach. It begins the repertoire, and then what you're saying about the rest of the 80% is spot on. The conversion is so critical now.
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking of it. You know when people used to say, like, if you go on a hike and you didn't put it on Instagram, did you actually go on a hike? You know,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm thinking about right now. I'm like, well, if you squatted 435, if you don't have video of it, did you really do that? Like, did you really do
Right.
that? You need proof. You need to show it. Anybody can just send an email saying, I'm 6'5". I run a 4'4". I squat 480 pounds. Like anybody can just say that stuff.
Sure.
You have to be able to prove it. You have to. Tips to get scouted as an 11th grade pitcher. My number one tip is throw hard.
Yeah.
that's like my number one tip. That's a talent thing more than anything else. Once you have that, past that, it's a couple different things, right? One is consistency, showing that you can throw at that velo over and over and over again, that you didn't just have one great weekend. The second thing is being able to show some sort of command, being able to obviously spin the ball, throw a change up, all that kind of stuff is important. But at that point, it's velo consistency and exposure.
Yeah.
Connor, anything else there?
Yeah, the biggest thing, I mean, we just saw this with Chad, right? Like, you and I had a big in-depth conversation with him, but you know, he's at 2026 right now, and there's a lot of coaches that are just like in the mix, right? And like they're in the mix or watching his video. They say, "Hey, I need to watch you this spring and see what happens." But it's not one outing, right? And he blew up the radar gun, jumped 3 or 4 miles an hour in his first outing, which is awesome. Except now you have to do it again, and then you have to do it again, and then you have to do it again. And what Jack is saying is spot on about consistency because there's a difference in what you pitch at and where you top out at. There's a huge difference in discrepancy between those two, right? Where I can top out at 92, but I pitch at 88. So now you're getting an 88-mile-an-hour player, right? Versus, hey, I can top at 93 and I'm pitching at 91. That's way different. So look, if you're not at that caliber yet, totally fine. We've had people get recruited honestly honestly, that threw 81 miles an hour. Okay, so like, a bunch of different factors went into that, but still, I think that just continuing that growth and that process is massively important as a pitcher.
Yeah, I always think of Dylan, man.
Dylan's the man.
You can't not think of Dylan.
Yep.
Like we had this kid, guys, and I doubt he's watching now. He doesn't have any reason to. He's in college now. But he was not the most talented pitcher. He was not. He didn't really throw that hard. He didn't really have anything great. But I'll tell you what, of every athlete I think that we've ever had in the D1 scholarship ecosystem, I think he has the most courage out of anybody. That guy would no shame, no fear of rejection. And man, he walked himself into rooms he didn't belong in. That
No
happened
question.
over and over and over again. And so I learned a lot from Dylan. I learned a lot from Dylan. I always think of him. Just qualified for Masters. This is a wrestler. This past weekend was ranked number 3 in San Diego County and 36 in California out of about 400 athletes compete in D1, which is the toughest division in my area. How does this reflect for potential recruiting? You should be putting that everywhere.
No doubt.
That should be on every social media platform that you have an account for. It should be in communication to schools that you're already talking to who are already interested. It should be in communication to schools that you haven't been talking to yet. Those stats are good enough that you should be sharing that everywhere. And you can share it exactly like you just told me is great. But yeah, that needs to be everywhere. That's worth sharing. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Talk about the Big Four, and it even pertains to wrestling, right? Like California, Florida, Texas, Georgia, like the Big Four. If you just recruit out of those states, then you'll be fine. And this pertains to all sports, guys. Like so many colleges. So if you're only looking at schools in California, expand that. That would be my only recommendation. Like go outside of that because there's so many people that come into your state to recruit for your sport. So increase that radius of people that you're trying to contact and then use those as leverage.
I had that conversation with Eric yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So I was talking to Eric and they asked me a very interesting question, which is like, hey, if he was your son, what would you do in the recruiting process with him specifically? And I was like, okay, what would I do? And one of the things that I told him is I was like, I would have him contact at least 100 schools in 3 different divisions. Even if we think he's a Division I player, I would still contact multiple divisions. Now, I also told him, I said, also, I would prioritize Division I right now because D3, NAI, JUCO for your age are not recruiting yet. There's no reason to do that. Like later on, like we'll keep those as an option for now because you're early enough. We're talking about a 2028 for anybody that's interested. Like we're talking about a 2028. It's like for now, folk prioritize D1 schools, right? Because of what we think he's capable of and where he's at in the process. And I think I've just never met anybody that benefits from narrowing their school list early.
No.
Never. I think of Charla. Like her daughter is one of the top players in the country. Like she plays lacrosse. And, on September 1st, she was one of the girls who was getting calls from midnight to 1:30 a.m. on the first day, right? Like that kind of talent. By 4:00 on the first day, she was committed with a 200 grand plus scholarship, right? So we're talking like top of the top athlete. That family contacted 100 plus schools that she was probably never going to go to, schools that she was way better than. Guess what? They were so happy they did that for a number of reasons. One, they had backups, but 2, she was able to have phone calls with lower level schools before she ever needed to get on the phone with a Division I school.
Yep.
Like when you're talking to September 1st girl like that, there's some high pressure conversations on the first day. Hey, we need to know by tomorrow. Like that's sometimes how those conversations go in lacrosse on September 1st. And like, thank God it wasn't her first time on that call. And so I have yet to see a kid, no matter how talented, benefit from reducing the number of schools that they contact.
No. Well, dude, I got an email today that was one of our families. Super awesome. It was $66,000 a year scholarship, which is awesome. Okay. Super cool.
Woo!
Yeah, super cool. Okay. But there's a deadline. Okay. So it's a private school. So the increase in cost and like everything that goes into that. So they'd still have to come out of pocket with some money. And I won't go into details about what that looks like. But essentially, they were given a deadline of 228. Okay. So like coming up soon.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
And they were like, "Hey, how one if we wanted to ask for more money, how do we do that appropriately?" The second thing, right, is how do you tell other people this that you have a deadline? And it's like
Uh,
super fun. But the last part of the email was what stuck to me the most because it talked about, "Hey, we have a ton of experience with everything else in the process, and this has led us to this moment where we don't know what to do right now." And it's like, "Okay, cool." So,
yeah.
which is cool. Like, it's a good spot to be in. But, I think that as you progress, that other 80%, I keep coming back to that because it's so important for families to understand about like there's so much that goes into this, and when you're talking about a high schooler having these in-depth conversation with coaches and asking for more money or talking about leveraging opportunities, like, if you've never done it before and you've never had that talk and you're 16 years old, it's scary, like,
Yeah.
it's very stressful, or if you don't have anyone in your corner to back you, I think that's even worse, right? Like, you're just going into it blind and you're gonna ask someone for more money, like, insanely difficult, or you probably just don't even you just glaze over and you're like, "Hey, this is what we have."
Yeah. Well, the way that I think about it, like when I think about the second 80% of the process, and again, for those who are like, what are they talking about? We're talking about when you get interest from a school, you don't go 80% of the way through the process. You go 20% of the way through the process. And then you have to take that interest and turn it into an offer. And that's the other 80%. Okay. That whole process. And we harp on this so much because I can't tell you the number of families that had interest at one point, didn't know how to do that, and then lost it and had to start over again. Like it just happens all the time, and I don't want that to happen to you guys who's listening, paying attention right now. And so all of that is, I I just can't stress that enough. And I feel like it's not talked about enough. People love to talk about emails. They love to talk about social media, which I'm about to talk about social media in a second. They love to talk about that stuff, but you have to understand that turning that interest into an offer, that's where the money is made.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, I'll give you an example. This family that Connor's talking about, which I want the deets later, but like 60 grand plus a year in scholarship money. Okay. Is that a year, Connor?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a 200 grand plus scholarship offer. All right. Big time. That's great. That family, if they go and ask, I'll just give you an example. If they go ask this school for more money and they do it in the wrong way, the school will pull the offer.
Yeah.
If they don't know how to communicate this offer with the other schools that they're talking to, those other schools might never come along, or they might come along, but then they lose the original offer. Like
Mhm.
they are on the finish line. They're on the 5 yard line. Go ask Russell Wilson if the 3 yard line is the same thing as the end zone. He will tell you it's not. You can throw an interception on the 3 yard line.
Yeah.
You can't. And people are like, I think, man, it sounds like I'm just trying to scare you guys. I'm not. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you because the only thing more painful than not getting a scholarship offer is having a scholarship offer pulled.
Yeah, it's so scary. I actually this is another completely different topic. There's another family, baseball family, that's a 26, and he listed out all the schools he was talking to, where they were that in their relationship, and we were going through strategy, kind of hashing stuff out. And one of the comments that really scared me was already been offered, said he has a spot, regardless of what the timeline looks like. And I was like, hey, I know that you wrote this, and he may have very well said this, but we still have to be reasonable with this opportunity. Like, you can't just not talk to this person or not give them updates and not stay in communication because, look, if you don't hear from this person for 3 months, you're like, I they may just forget that they even gave you this offer, and so you still have to, like, harness that and water that plant for it to grow, and plus, if you're using it as a backup plan, like, be careful. And,
Yeah.
like, we're not doing this to scare people. I think you nailed that on the head. It's just like, look, if you're given an opportunity that is in collegiate sports, like, it's volatile, and just knowing that is critical.
Yeah. I mean, I've had an offer pulled. Connor, I can't remember.
Yeah,
You have an offer pulled?
No, I didn't ever have one pulled, but there was definitely a timeline that was given to me. Like it was the coach at Auburn that I talked to you about that. It was the
Yeah.
last time we were on live. And so we had this like big discussion. They matched the offer that I was given at Tech, which is great. But he was expecting me to make a decision within a week. And it was like, look, we've matched, we've given you what we think is fair and the guy was really hard nosed and very like to the point, no funny business. And so it was a scary conversation, but it's like, look, we expect you to want to be invested in our program. And it's hearing that as a 15, 16-year-old, I'm like, okay. And it was when Cam Newton was the quarterback. So like obviously we went to the football game and like they won the national championship that year.
Yeah.
So like I was enamored. I was like, this place is so cool. But it still comes down to the same point, right? Like I was ready to commit and I committed pretty early. To Georgia Tech, but it was after I'd already done my due diligence with all their other opportunities and conversations with coaches and stuff, and I really think that I made the best decision possible. Um, but
Yeah.
man, still like
I'm telling you, take it,
insanely difficult.
take it for somebody who's had an offer pulled. It's not fun. Liam's dad is back. Oh man, he told me his name yesterday. Was it yesterday? David? Oh, I could be so wrong about that. Liam's dad, when only one coach answers from a school, should we keep emailing the other coaches, including the head coach, or just email the one who answered? Thanks for doing this. You should just stick with the one who responded to you. Okay. So if you emailed 4 coaches, one of them responds to you, then continue with that coach. Now, what happens if you contact 4 coaches, but 2 of them respond? Then what do you do? Both of them. Both. You run both of them, because what's going to end up happening is that division of labor is going to get transferred to one person at some point. Okay. You're not going to communicate. Even if they're interested in you, even if they eventually give you an offer, they're not both going to communicate with you for the duration of the recruiting process. What's going to end up happening is they're both going to do it. How do I on the screen? I guess they're both going to do it for a while, and then they're going to talk and be like, hey, yeah, you just take this guy. Right. And then this one is going to peel off, and this guy's going to continue talking to you. The thing is that when you first start, you don't know which coach that is. And so continue with both of them. And then when they make it clear which one they want you to follow, then you can ditch the other one and you could just focus on the one that's continuing to engage with you. So that's kind of how you should handle. But if only one of them has responded, stick with the one who has responded. Leave the other ones alone for now. Anything else, Connor?
No, eventually what you said is completely true where they both like meet at a point. Sometimes what happens, which is super cool, is like you talk to them for a substantial amount of time and then the head coach is the one who actually takes over and then it dives into that pool. So that's when it becomes fun because they're the ones who ultimately usually, right, like extend the offer, tell you the money, all the different opportunity boundaries and like what that looks like. So that's when it's fun.
Sometimes I get questions of people and they're like, well, I'm only talking to the assistant coach. So are they not interested because of that? The answer is no. Most of the time, especially when you get to higher level schools, you're going to be engaging with the assistants like pretty much all the time. I'll give you an example. When I got recruited by Mississippi State, I never met the head coach. Okay. I never met the head coach until I sat in his office and he offered me a full ride.
Yep.
That's literally the first time that I met the coach. I never spoken to him on the phone. I'd never shaken his hand for 10 seconds. The first time I literally met him is when he gave me the offer.
Mm-hmm.
Very common. Like that's
Yep.
very common. Now you'll have other schools. There's lots of reasons why a head coach might be more engaged. So they might be more engaged if it's a smaller program. They don't have as big of a staff to help out with. They might be more engaged if they're a new head coach at the program and they want more influence over the players that they're bringing in and the culture and that kind of thing. If a coach has been at a school for 20 years, right, culture's already been set. If they have enough money to have, minions, assistants go do the work, like then you're probably not going to get too much face time with the head coach, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily mean they're not interested. There's lots of reasons why that might be the case. International female swimmer. What are some tips you have for me? I've been in contact with coaches, but I want to go D2 or D1. My biggest thing is, all right, I speak the truth. It doesn't matter what you want. right? Depends on what you're capable of. So when you say, what are some tips? I've been in contact with coaches, but I want to go D2 or D1. It sounds like the schools that you've been in contact with are lower level schools, D3,
Yeah.
NAIAs, right? Those types of schools. It might be that you just haven't contacted enough D1 schools, that you haven't contacted enough coaches at each school, that you haven't contacted each coach enough times, that you haven't contacted them on enough platforms, that you haven't contacted them with good enough evidence. Like it could just be any one of those, and you're totally capable of going to a D1 school. If you've done all of those things and you still don't have interest, it could just be that you're not a Division I caliber player. And that's the reality, right? That's where my mind went right away, Connor. I don't know if you have a
No, there's
uplifting
nothing.
answer here.
No. There's no more to add to that. Look, just make sure that you're mapping this out, right? Like if you're an international swimmer that is in women's sports, like you contact every Division I and Division II school. Like if that's where your goal is, then contact all of those schools inside of that space. And it sounds like a lot of work because it is, but it's worth it, right? Because now you're going to really, and then look, if you contact every single one of those schools and you still aren't hearing things or you're not like getting the feedback that you are desiring, then okay, then we have our answer as Jack said, right? But like before that, there could just be like holes in the system where you're not contacting enough people and you're not giving yourself the best chance and the best opportunity to do what you want to do.
Yeah. By the way, good time for me to mention, because I haven't mentioned it yet and we're running out of time here. The social media workshop is tonight. So it's tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. If you want to know how to use social media in recruiting, we've generated tens of millions of dollars in scholarships just in the last couple of years. If you want to just see what we're doing, workshop tonight is a great time. Registration closes today at 4 p.m. Eastern, which is what, 2.5 hours from now? So this is last chance. Okay. I'll mention that now, d1scholarship.com/social media workshop. If you want to learn how to use social media, going to be diving in. I already filmed. I made the agenda. I've tried to get the slides down, Connor. We're now at like 60.
Cool.
And it was much longer. And I was like, they're not going to sit here for 7 hours, Jack. I was like, what's the most important stuff? And so that's what we'll be sharing. So tonight, social media workshop, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, d1scholarship.com/social media workshop. If you're
I think what you said though, Jack, is like, look, like you could talk about this one subject, like even you trying to like limit the slides to 60 and like get it down to that number. I mean, you could go off of a 200 slide template and still fill it out, right? Like it's insane how much this actually gets. Also, little plug, like we need to talk about this because it's cool, but that video that generated 7.3 million views is insane. Like, guys, for context, we posted a video on one of the social media platforms, and it did really, really well, and it got 7.3 million views, which is insanity. But look, I don't know what happened. Not saying that happens for everyone.
I'm not
but my
promising that if
goodness.
you come to the workshop, that's going to
No,
happen for you.
but I
I'm
have
not
to plug it
promising
in.
that.
Like that was so cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. All right, Connor. How can we tell which college programs are genuinely recruiting my son versus those that are mainly marketing their program or keeping him on a general interest list?
Ooh, okay. There's some reading between the lines that has to happen, right? So, like, if you're receiving email responses back, they're going to give you little nuggets of information. So, yes, they still may plug in their program, their school, give you a video walkthrough, do a camp, right? Like, hey, I'm inviting you to this camp. But things to look out for on the negative side, if it's like, hey, athlete, come to this camp. We are hosting 3 of them in the next 3 months. And that's the only context that they give you, right? Like, you have no inclination that they like your son, okay? On the flip side of that, if they say, "Hey, first name, I watched your video. I liked what I saw. I think it would be a great fit. The last piece of our process is to watch you at camp and to see you in person. We have a couple of opportunities lined up. Also, send me your schedule." That looks way different than just what I said at the first example. Okay. So make sure that you're reading behind the lines as to what they're actually telling you. It's a good way to gauge interest and continue conversation and say that you can make the camp. Still asking more pointed questions to follow that up. Okay. And those pointed questions are pretty critical. Jack, do you care if I ask and just give them a couple of?
Go for it.
Okay, cool. So one of the follow-up questions that you can ask is like, how many people have you recruited from your camp, right? Like just to know as a general sense, hey, are you still recruiting my grad class and position? Because before you actually step foot and go to this camp and invest that money, a couple of these things need to be answered so that you actually know if you have a shot, right? can I send you video updates before the camp? And those are the 3 that I'm just going to give you, and you do with them as you please, but see what they say from those, and then you can make a more educated decision based on the information that you have.
Um, so the thing that I'm thinking about here is keeping him on a versus those that are mainly either marketing their program or keeping him on a general interest list. Keep in mind that every school that you start talking to, you are on a general interest list,
Mhm.
right? Like this family that got a $60,000 scholarship a year, right? 200 and whatever grand. Okay. That family, at one point, that conversation started on a general interest list. They didn't learn about the kid and then go, boom, 200 grand scholarship. There it is. That's not what they did, right? The school looked at him and went, okay, that looks interesting. And they put him on a list with 5 other guys, 10 other guys, 20 other guys, depending on how early or late they are in their recruiting process. That's what happened. And then they took that and they built that interest over time. And so what I would say is if you're on a general interest list, that's a great place to be.
Yep.
That's a great place to be. And is that where you want to end up? No, but everybody starts there, right? Everybody starts there. And that's why I was saying the number one skill to learn in college recruiting in 2026 is getting off that list, is getting from that list to elevated levels of communication. The challenge is I think a lot of people think it's hard to get on that list. It depends on the athlete, but if your kid is like somewhat talented, it's not that hard to get interest. It's not. And so like, it's actually easier. Okay, Connor, here's a hot take. Ready? It's easier to stand out amongst a million players, literally 1 million players across the United States, than it is to stand out on the list of 15 that a coach is actually interested in, because the other 15 that are on the list are legit. They're good players. You're now competing against like other people who are actually good, not random family who's not really trying in the recruiting process and the kid is not that good. That's not who you're competing with once you're on the general list. You're competing against the best players that they can get, right? That is where the competition gets fierce. And so I would say it's great to be on the general interest list. It's just the first step, right?
Yep.
Everything else that Connor said about like looking for the little nuggets of them telling you how they're interested in pursuing that, like that's real, right? He nailed nailed it on the head on that one. But I just want to be clear, like there's nothing wrong with being on the general interest list. The problem is assuming that when you're on that list, you're close to an offer. That's where the problem comes in.
Yeah. We talk about it in phases, right? Like that's phase 1 of like, great, you passed the first like chasm of recruiting. And now it's like phase 2, which is get on the short list. So they make this big long list of people they might want to check up on. And there's a select few that go straight to the top, right? Like the top 5 athletes that they're going to recruit in that class. Like where they go from step 1, which is, hey, I just found this kid and he's an immediate impact player, right? And then he goes to the top of the list. But for the majority of our athletes, like if you're saying that a grad class is 10, 15 people, it falls into that greater number that Jack was referring to.
Yeah, for sure. Does a follow from the program on Instagram mean anything?
Heck yeah. Heck yeah, it does. Okay. People don't follow people that they don't want to keep up with. Okay. Like
if you stink, if you're not a good player, coaches aren't like, I'm following that kid.
Yeah, I want to see everything that kid has to offer. No, it means a lot. Man, like that's a good question. It's also a question we get asked quite a bit. It's like, hey, like, how do they just followed me? And it's like, no. Like they followed you. And now they actually want to see you continually post, continue to keep up with them. And they're giving you every inclination that they want to see more of you.
So let's also add to this, which by the way, we're going to go super in depth on this tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on the social media workshop. We're going to talk about exactly how to do what I'm about to say. But there are different levels of interest. Not all interest is the same, right? And so like I would say a follow from a college coach is not nothing. They're not following players that they don't think are good. It's also probably the lowest level of interest that a coach can show. So you have like follows down at the bottom, then you'd have like email and DM conversations, then you'd have phone calls and texting with coaches, then you'd have going on visits, and then you would have offers at the end. Right. And like those are not the same levels of communication. If you're having phone calls with coaches, that's not the same as getting followed on Twitter. Right now, that doesn't mean getting followed on Twitter is not nothing. what I would say is getting followed on Twitter is very similar to the general interest thing that we just talked about, which is like, awesome. You're now in a different category. Your goal, though, is to ascend coaches into the higher levels of interest. You want to take that follow and turn it into a DM conversation. And then you want to turn that into a phone call or a texting conversation. And then you want to turn that into a visit. And then you want to turn that into an offer. Like, that's what you're trying to do. And that's what we're going to talk about at the social media workshop tonight. Again, registration closes in a couple hours. Like, I got to be able to send all this stuff out, make sure everybody gets access. So d1scholarship.com/social media workshop. Today is the last chance. We're probably not going to host this again for at least a few months. If we ever host it again, I don't know, but at least a few months. But yes, a follow on Instagram means something. They're not just following players that they don't think are any good. It's not happening. Not happening. Can we pay and watch it at a later time? Yes, you can. But you, as of right now, maybe this changes, but as of right now, you can't pay for it after the fact. So if you want to get the workshop now, and then all ticket purchasers get the recording and the slides that I'm going to cover, along with 100 inspiration examples of content, bio, and pinned tweets, like everyone who buys a ticket gets access to that. But after the workshop, so after a couple hours, as of right now, I don't have that as a thing. I'm not going to allow that right now. That's how we can help you the most. That's how we can help you the most. But yes, you can theoretically pay for it now, buy a ticket, and then watch the recording. Daughter's a 27 distance runner. How do scouts view a rated race with a top 10 finish at a top tier national race versus the seeded or invitational? You need me to read that again?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that first sentence, that's a tongue twister. Let's do that one more time.
That was a little something. So 27 distance runner.
Yeah,
okay?
right.
It's asking how college recruiters, how do they view a, quote, rated race with a top 10 finish at a top tier national race, big event, versus a seeded or invitational event?
Look, the more people, the more competition, the top 10 finish is going to hold some more weight. Okay. Like, think about this as far as when you win, just say like football. Okay. They win their region. Great. Awesome. Who's in your region? We don't know. Right. And so when you're talking about like the lower tiers of what this looks like, if you have say you're a top 10 program in a national seeded event, and then for your instance, you're a top 10 runner in a national seeded event, like, that holds some weight, okay? Depending on how many people are at this event, depending on the caliber of people, if it's an invite only, so there's more context that needs to be given, but the top 10 finish is going to hold some more merit in my eyes, right? And especially given the past situations that we've had, where if you go to a national event, your team or your individual finishes in that top 10 category, like, that's something to be said and to be noted. I think that answers the question. Jack, if you have anything to add to the last part, because the second piece is kind of unclear.
This is specifically why stats are not always valuable.
Yeah.
They can be valuable. They can be, but they're not always valuable. Because the thing about stats is they require context to be valuable. Correct. So remember this, stats require context to be valuable. Me saying, I did this incredible thing, doesn't actually prove that I'm a good player. Because like, I can say, oh, I dominated the wrestling competition. Okay. Who'd you face? Well, my 6-year-old nephew. It's like, all right. Okay. Right. But like, and that's an extreme example. But the point is the context matters, which is why in events like that, when it's a huge event with really strong competition and you perform well, that's extremely meaningful. That's a big deal. If you perform really well at a tiny no-name event, then it doesn't really matter that you perform that well. It just doesn't matter. And this goes across all sports. This is, it doesn't really matter what sport you play. That's the case. 28 beach player, D1 coach is really pushing to talk on the phone. How do I handle that if June 15th is the date? If they want to get on the phone, get on the phone. You're not the one.
Heck yeah.
You're not the one who's going to get in trouble. So take the call. Take the call. Let the coach be the one to if anything gets sent their way, they'll handle that. But take the call. Take the call. Just because you have a call today doesn't mean you'll have a call tomorrow. Just because you have a visit offer today doesn't mean you'll have one tomorrow. That stuff can vanish like that. Strike while the iron's hot.
Good morning. How you guys doing? I'm doing fantastic. It's great to see you. Recognize your name. Awesome to see you again. Awesome to see you again. We're doing this, by the way, rest of this week too. 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll be back live here. So if you're enjoying this, come back, hang out. I have to run a qualifying time, and then ranked by your seat time. She runs 10:45. I'm confused by the question there.
I would assume just from like the one sentence that you said that you have to, it's like prelims and then you go into something else, then go into something else, right? So it's like a tier system. So once again, it goes back to Jack's point though, is like as you progress up these ranks, right, and you get to run at more events because you've placed and because you've ran these times, that piece alone adds weight to what you're saying, right? But it also adds the context that Jack was referring to. Like if you just tell someone, "Hey, I ran this," and you're talking about an event, like it does hold some merit. But if you say, "I ran this at this event and placed this," like now it holds true, and it's actually stronger for your argument of you being a good player.
So you know what's funny is in high school, I had really good stats. Like I was conference player and like I had all the stats. I had a really hard time getting recruited using those stats.
Yeah.
Okay. When I got to junior college, so what was going to West Point, medically disqualified, ended up at Oregon, played my freshman year at Oregon, and I started the first like 25 games and I played really poorly and I had really bad stats. I got benched, didn't play the rest of the year. Second year, got my scholarship pulled, and I bounced back to a junior college. Here's my point. When I got to junior college, I remember thinking, I'm gonna have a really hard time getting recruited because I don't have any stats. And not sorry, I don't have good stats. It's not like I didn't have stats. I actually have bad stats. And I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have a really hard time. Like this is not gonna be good.
Yep.
And so I had to rely on video, right? And I pretty much never shared any stats. I got more interest than I could possibly handle. And it was just a huge light bulb moment for me that in skill-based sports, and if you run track or you're a swimmer, like times are really important for you. Okay. That's different. That's time-based. You still need exposure. You still need to build relationships with coaches. The evidence just looks a little bit different. But for skill-based sports, baseball, basketball, football, soccer, lacrosse, volleyball, softball, those are skill-based sports. You can get recruited without ever sharing a single stat.
No doubt.
You literally can't. And that was a huge light bulb moment for me. And I didn't learn that until I got to junior college. And I remember thinking, man, if I had known then what I know now, boy, would that have been a different outcome in high school for sure. Looking forward to the workshop tonight. Will you be talking at all about emailing coaches or offering another email workshop? We will not be talking about emailing coaches. We're going to be running short on time probably as it is. There's just too much to talk about. To give you an example, like when we ran the email workshop last month, I said that I was going to teach for 45 to 60 minutes. And we were an hour and a half in and I was still teaching. And I was like, fudge. And even then I was trying to like speed through it. There was too much that I wanted to share and talk about. And I'm not talking about fluff. I'm trying to give you everything that we know and that we've learned. And so we're not going to have time to talk about anything but social media. Also, I don't want to teach on it for an hour and a half tonight. I want to do more Q&A. And so tonight the goal is 45 to 60 minutes. And so we won't have time to talk about emailing coaches. Offering another email workshop probably in a few months. We'll probably do it. The feedback was fantastic. People have I had a lot of people asking for another one. So yeah, we'll probably do another one, but it probably won't be for a few months. So social media workshop, what she's talking about, that's tonight, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, d1scholarship.com/social media workshop. Registration closes in a couple hours. So this is kind of your last chance if you're interested. 2028 beach volleyball player. How often should I email film? Email coaches and they watch me play this weekend. Every 3 weeks, they can call June 15th.
It's almost critical now, like crunch time. Okay. Right now it's because you're on this June 15th mark, right? Like you're trying to get as close to that as possible. So as you get closer to that mark, the increase in email should go up. Okay. So like think about this, right? Like if you're in season, which I would imagine it's February, like you're getting close to season. It's a little cold where I am, so like I don't think there's much beach volleyball going on, depending on where you are, right? You might be very well into season, you might live in California or Florida, whatever. Okay. Nonetheless, it's important that you just start to increase that number as you get closer to that mark. So if you're doing it once a month right now and sending email updates to coaches, it's probably time to start the twice a month, and then next month 3 times a month, and then the following month for like you're doing it pretty much every time, right? To try to get yourself in the best possible situation um, as you lead into when they can actually contact you.
So notice that Connor is saying, like, you're gonna the frequency with which you're communicating with coaches will increase as you get closer to June 15th.
Yep.
And so once a month, yeah, you're okay right now, but you're about to enter a period where it should be increasing to about twice a month, is what Connor is saying. And then as you get closer to June 15th, that number should be soaring. It should be skyrocketing. And that's why, like, the 4 weeks before June 15th, that's got to be serious. Like you're really doing everything that you possibly can to make the most of June 15th. And that's true for every sport, regardless of whether your date is June 15th, August 1st, September 1st. That's
Doesn't matter.
how that's going to go anyway. As you get closer to the date, the frequency with which you contact coaches should increase.
Yep.
Should increase. Same coach asking for a call is asking what other D1 schools I'm interested in. How do I answer that question, please? Just honestly or vague?
Depends. The old depends,
The old
right?
depends, Connor. Trying to sidestep the question or what, man? Answer the
Yep.
question.
Yeah, great. I will. Okay. Look, I don't want to divulge too much. Okay, and that's the reason why I'd say it depends. Because look, there's a way to do it, and you build rapport with the coach. There's a way to do it, and they start to silo you into another opportunity. Okay, which is like, I don't know if they're at this caliber, and so to answer your question, like go off of caliber. If the schools that you're talking to are similar caliber or higher, for sure. Okay, if they're lower in tier, be careful, and that's what I'll say about that.
So let me use a couple more specific words to like clean it up a little. So
Sure.
if a school is at the same level or higher level, the schools you're talking to are at the same or higher level than the one that you're having a phone call with, you should be specific about those schools. You
Yep.
can name drop them, you can say the conferences, that's great. If the schools that you're talking to are lower caliber wise than the school on the phone, you should be vague, right? Now you don't want to not say anything like, oh, I'm not talking to anybody. No, that's a problem, because then if you're a good player, you should have people coming after you. So you just want to be more vague, and then you can talk about the regions of the country, the number of schools that you're talking to, etc. Right? Like if I said, yeah, I'm talking to some other schools. I mean, I have 10 offers right now. Oh, that's pretty good. Little do you know that they're D3 offers, right? But you didn't know that. You were just like, oh, 10 offers. And then if you came to me and you said, well, who are those offers from the 10 schools, right? I might just tell you like, oh, they're mostly from schools like in the Northeast and in the Southeast. And now what? You're going to ask me again? You're going to be like,
Yeah.
like probably not. Like, so the better the schools are, the more specific you can be. The worse the schools are, the more vague you should be.
Yep. Great. I'm glad you talked about that, because like, look, that's exactly like where we were headed. But it's good. It's good information for people to know. It's just one of those things that like when you talk about strategy, like it goes back to the 80%. I know we've talked about it a lot, guys, but like there's a way to say stuff and there's a way not to. And you can burn a bridge, you can put yourself into a bad category if you're not careful. Also on social media, this pertains a lot to this. With posting offers and doing that, guys. Like if you I'm gonna plug it in just because it is so important, but like social media can make or break your recruiting process in a hurry, just based on what you share alone, right? You don't have to tag any coaches. It's just based on the information that you're giving people. Okay. It's worth it.
So what's interesting is I had a family message me. This stuff drives me crazy, man. I got this message from a family. The family doesn't drive me crazy. What their travel coach is doing is driving me crazy.
Sure.
Connor, I got this message. I want to read it. Where's this conversation? So the question was like, hey, should we post our offers, etc.? And we were like, yeah, you should post the offers. Okay.
Sure.
And she goes, well, I guess the whole thing is just a moot point. because she joined a new travel team, and the new travel team doesn't allow you to post offers.
For what?
And I said, wait, what? Her new travel team doesn't let their athletes post offers? And she said, that is correct. And I said, wow, so many questions for your travel team. And I said, how can they even prevent parents from doing that? And then I asked why. I said, is it because they don't want the players being like me or something? And she said, they say it's because we don't want to brag. But honestly, I think it's more about control. Guys, let me be really, really clear about this. Okay. Like, because no one is going to tell you the truth about this. Okay. People are going to tell you, hey, be a good teammate, help your teammates. If you help your teammates, you'll also get offers, repost their stuff on social media. Connor, I know you love that one. Like,
Oh man.
people will tell you if you're not doing that stuff, you're not being a good teammate. If you're posting your offers, then you're being selfish, right? This is what people will tell you. Guys, I'm here to help you. Connor is here to help you get more scholarship offers. That's why. We're not here to sing kumbaya. We are nice guys who have high moral integrity, but our job is to help you get offers. Please listen to this. If you don't brag about yourself, no one else will.
Correct.
That whole thing about like, oh, if you don't brag about it, someone else will do it for you. Not in recruiting.
Yep.
Not in recruiting. They won't. And all that's going to happen is your kid, who is so talented and deserves the opportunities, will get overshadowed by the kids who are willing to brag about themselves. Period. Okay. And I get so frustrated with this because I understand the sentiment. I'm not naive. I understand the sentiment. You want to be a good teammate. Amazing. You want to support them. You don't want to be me. You might not even like the spotlight. I get it. But I'm telling you, you will get less and worse opportunities if you don't brag about yourself and take it from somebody. Listen, I've played at 2 different Division I schools. I've had an offer pulled. I played at a junior college. I got drafted to play professional sports. I played 7 years of professional sports. I've been around the block. I, for the majority of my career, was what they call a good soldier. A good soldier is somebody who does whatever they are asked to do and told to do by the organization or the team. That is a good soldier. Okay. Let me tell you, as the good soldier, and I was like, you know what? I want to do that because I'm here. I'm for the organization. I believe if I'm for the organization and I do my job, I'll get those opportunities. Okay. Let me tell you exactly what happened. I was beloved by the front office. They were like, this guy, man, I love that guy. I got the teammate awards. Like, Connor, I won the Aaron Cox teammate award with the Angels.
Yeah.
Like, I got all that stuff because I went above and beyond to help the organization. Yeah, you know what else I didn't get from the organization? A fat, long contract.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't.
I'm with you.
I was a good soldier.
Yep.
And so I'm getting worked up about this because this drives me crazy. Their team doesn't want to brag. You know what's going to happen to this travel team? Their kids are not going to get recruited. And you know what's going to happen to the travel team when the team doesn't get recruited? There's not going to be a travel team.
It's just counterproductive, right? Like, it's counterproductive to what the travel team and how they make their money, right? How do you get people to come play for you? You become really good. How do you become really good? You get good players. And how do you get good players? Good players want to go play in college. And so, like, it's counterproductive to what needs to happen. It makes me sick that someone would tell someone not to post or do things or that's going to have their best interest at heart. That's insane.
Ridiculous.
And to repost, what I mean, they're even talking about reposting, but you can't post about yourself. Like, what? Okay, then who posts? It's like you might as well just not have it. And like, I can't, man. That's insane.
But again, like, go to any top organization, like travel organization. Go to any top organization that produces a lot of commits. Like, think of the biggest organizations in your sport, whatever that is. Think of those teams. Okay. They get the most players recruited, right? Go see if those athletes post their offers.
Yeah. Think about football. Football is, I would say, and just based on data alone, we know this to be true, but football individuals get they get the most offers, right? So like if you have one, you probably have nine, right? Because there's more resources, there's more of a team that's designated for recruiting for their sport. Okay. So nonetheless, um, think about that. If a person doesn't know that you have three offers, right? And they don't know what those offers look like inside of football, everyone's just questioning. No one wants to pull the trigger first because if you're first, then the last person can just come and be like, I'll just give this kid an offer and like I'll take you. So no one wants to be first, but someone has to do it. And so like, man, I think about that a lot. I had an individual talk about football. It was on office hours, I think like last Thursday, and they were like, hey, so we got this offer and we went through the whole spiel about what that looks like. They're like, should we post it? And I'm like, yes. And then I looked at their Twitter and the repost thing that just drives me nuts was starting to occur. And I was like, stop, stop it. Like, please stop.
So, guys, to clarify, when Connor's talking about the repost thing, what a lot of kids will do is on Twitter or Instagram, wherever it is, but usually Twitter, they'll repost a bunch of their friends' recruiting stuff on their profile. So it ends up on their profile, right? And so their friend will be like, had an amazing game, whatever. And then and then they'll repost it because they want to be a good teammate. They want to be supportive of their friend, right? They'll do that kind of thing. What ends up happening is that when a college coach sees their video, they're like, ooh, kid looks interesting. And they go to the profile for the kid and then they start scrolling and they don't see the kid. They see all his teammates instead on the profile. Like they're like, well, I want to see the kid, but I can't see the kid. And college coaches are not going to work that hard. They're going to say like, never mind. The second thing is they're going to see your friend do something amazing. They're going to be like, oh, that looks interesting. And then they're off and they're on your friend's profile now.
Crazy. Right? You just did all the work for your look. It'd be like if you went and you you went 99 yards to the end zone. And then you were like, here you go. Like, here you go. Like, take this football and score for me. Or like basketball, where you're on a fast break and you're about to windmill dunk it. Instead, like you're like,
pass it.
There you go. It's like, what? No, dunk it. Like, dunk the ball, please, for the love of everything good. Like,
that's a great analogy because that's exactly what it's like. And we're going to talk about this at the social media workshop tonight. You have two parts of social media: traffic and conversion. Traffic is when you send people to your recruiting profile. On the profile is conversion, turning them into followers and conversations and stuff like that. You work so hard to drive people to your profile. It's the saddest thing when you get them to do that, and then the whole profile is your friends. That's what Connor is talking about in terms of reposting. And again, not even saying you can't ever repost. You can, but like, man, when it's your profile, it better be your profile.
Yeah,
like it should be yours.
I can't wait to see the social media workshop tonight because like, look, like guys, this is what the 20% of what you do is critical, right? To get your name out there and to get noticed. But the 80% comes along with all of this that we're referring to. And coaches are not that diligent to stay on your profile for 4 hours to look down to the bottom fifth of your scrolls and to see you play. They're not.
They're just not going to. So social media workshop tonight. The registration closes in a couple hours. Last chance, d1scholarship.com/social media workshop. But Connor, isn't that crazy? That drove me crazy, man. I was having
that's insane.
I was like, I was just trying, because it's a mom, like I was just trying to be kind, but I wasn't frustrated with her, but I was low key frustrated with the travel team. I'm like, they are going to. But their brand, but this is the rock and hard place they found themselves in because they're brand new to the organization. Mm-hmm. So what? They're going to enter into a brand new organization and then start breaking all the rules from the team. Like that'd be a pretty tough thing to ask a family to do. You know what I mean? And so like I'm working with her on how we'll work around that. But man, that travel team is making it so hard for this family and for obviously families, and saying that it's because they don't want them to brag. Horrible reason. Tell me you don't know how to get kids recruited. Tell me. Tell me you don't know what you're doing. That drives me insane.
It's tough.
Drives me insane. All right. What's the best way to get on a coach's radar? There's 4 ways that you can get on a college coach's radar. That was the question. What's the best way to get on a coach's radar, in parentheses, D1? There's 4 primary ways that you can get on a coach's radar. Outreach, emails and DMs to coaches, content, posting content on social media, coach connections, and showcases and camps. Those are really like the only ways. If you're doing anything that's not in those ways, like that doesn't fall into one of those categories in some fashion, I don't know how you're trying to get on coaches' radars. Those are the 4 ways. Now, the thing is, most people will prioritize the last 2. They will prioritize coach connections and showcases and camps. That's what they'll prioritize. And then they'll send a couple emails and they'll post a little bit on social media. That's what they do, right? So, but remember, 26 trends report, 2026 recruiting trends report, we analyzed over 8,000 athletes. You know what we found? Guess what percentage of athletes reported and families reported that coach connections were their primary method of getting on college coaches' radars? Was it 50%? Like 50% of people said coach connections, they're the bomb.com. Was it 50? No. Was it 20? No. Was it 10? No. 4.5%.
I was just gonna say, I knew it was under 5. I just didn't know the exact number. But man, like
4.5%. Like Connor, low key, he might be on right now. Apologize if you're on. I mean, no disrespect. Eric sent me a message yesterday. Thank you so much for the phone call. Do you guys have connections?
Sure.
It's like, no, because we don't need them. 4.5% of families report connections as being their primary method of getting on college coaches' radars. The tricky thing about connections is they're really attractive. It's like, oh, this one person can just make a couple phone calls and then we'll get recruited. It's like the best deal ever. But you know what they say? It sounds too good to be true.
Probably is.
Probably is. And so that's the thing. And then showcases and camps, we talk about extensively here. If you've been to any of these lives, watch any of our content, you know how we talk about showcases and camps. They're money grabs unless you're talking to coaches beforehand. And so like 4 ways to get on coaches' radars. Here's what I recommend. Lean heavily into outreach and content. Start relationships with college coaches. And then guess what? Connections and showcases and camps become so much easier and more worth it. Because when you're already talking to coaches and those coaches call your coach is going to pick up every time. No right? Doubt. He or she doesn't have to make those calls. They're going to pick up every time. So now coach connections go from being basically useless to being very valuable. And then showcases and camps, the same thing. If you're already talking to coaches and then you go to camps for the schools that you're talking to, now you're not wasting tens of thousands of dollars. Now it's actually worth it. Right? And so those are the 4 ways to get on a college coach's radar. Anything, Connor?
No, I think about Scott, that it's a soccer family that play in a really, really good travel organization, big club. And man, it's one of the things that they asked pretty early on. They were actually my clothes, Jack, which is kind of cool. That was a long time ago. But they asked me a question and they were like, hey, how many coaches do you guys know? And it's like, where our club team knows tens of 20s of coaches. And I'm like, okay, great. That's awesome. Like, does that mean she's going to go to them? Maybe. But what happens if they don't like her? Right? Like, what happens? What happens if she's not a good fit for that program? What happens if she doesn't even like the school or she doesn't like the coaches? And now that's the only connections that they have. Because that's a lot. I mean, let's be honest. Like 20 coaches that you personally know and can call and pick up the phone is a ton for an organization.
Most don't have that.
Most have 2 or 3 that they knew because they played travel baseball growing up. Let's be honest, like 2 to 3 or 2 to 5. Let's be generous here. But other than that, it's like, man, what if you don't fit into that mold?
Well, talk to how about the coach, the conversation you had with the travel coach a couple weeks ago?
No doubt. It's like, hey, it's like, how are you guys recruiting? How are you guys doing it? And are you guys doing a good job? Well, I know, I do a decent number. It's like, oh, cool. How many people do you guys have committed? Well, and then he starts skirting, right? Because it's like, well, we only have, for our top 2 to 3% of players, we get them committed. I'm like, okay, but you're leaving out probably 30, 40 athletes that you're just not talking about. So what happens with them? They're on their own? Because that's extremely difficult. And so just be very careful with travel coaches and how they interpret that. And you think that they're going to do the work for you and those connections are going to produce some fruit at the end of the tunnel.
Well, he was also mentioning, right? Like I wasn't there for the convo. I'm going based on what you told me, but he was saying that he has some connections, but they're mainly in that region.
Well, that's another huge part
outside of that.
Correct. He said that there's one coach, and guys, for context, I live in Georgia. If you couldn't figure that out by the Georgia Tech lingo, okay. But he said he has one coach outside of state borders, and the rest of them are in this same like stratosphere of inside a 50-mile radius. And I'm like, Okay, so 6 schools? Like, what? I mean, 6 schools if you're going across all divisions and, like, you know them personally, how many times have you picked up the phone and actually called them? And he's like, "Well, we talk quite frequently because 'cause I'm good friends with them." And I'm like, "About what?" Right? Because when I talk to my friends, I'm talking about their life and their whole family and how this is all going. I'm not talking about the things that pertain to my team. Like, it's insane. And think about this too, guys. Like, whenever they want to boast about how good their team's going to be, they usually do say that, but then they talk about the 2 to 3 players that I mentioned earlier, right? We have this kid, he's a stud. Not we have 25 kids that can go play for you right now.
And let me clarify, guys. Like D1 scholarship exists to help the other 99% of athletes,
Correct.
right? So let's be super clear. Every once in a while, we'll get a family that is super uber talented. Okay.
Mhm.
Top 1%, like every once in a while. I'd say for every 100 families, we get 1%, right? For
Mhm.
every 100 families that we get and we help, we get 1. Okay. So it's very rare. Okay. Mostly because those families usually don't need us.
Yep.
They don't need us. Their kid is so good, so incredibly good. They're going to get found. They really are. But the other 99% of athletes, it doesn't work like that. So when we say, hey, you should contact 100 plus schools, you should have X number of videos on your YouTube channel, you should be posting X number of times a week. Like, we do that because that's what's required for what we call good, not great athletes to get recruited.
Mhm.
Good enough to play in college, not great enough to get recruited on talent alone. Everything we make is for those athletes. If your kid is a top 1%er and you do what we say, you will have 50 offers, like literally 50 offers. Everything that we do is to help athletes who are not in the top 1%. It's the opposite of the travel team that Connor is talking about. The travel team that Connor is talking about was boasting about their commitments, and they were saying about 3 players, and all 3 of those players were going to get recruited no matter what, regardless of what the organization did. All the other kids, where that wasn't the case, organization was dropping the ball. Okay. And so keep that in mind. Like, sometimes Connor will get people will be like, well, I only sent 15, and I got 10 offers. And I'm like, yeah, because you're 6'7". Like, oh, duh. What do you
Yeah,
mean?
right.
Like, what do you mean?
You have an
dog?
unwritten intangible that nobody else has, okay?
It's
So, like,
ridiculous.
you can walk onto a field and be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get an offer just because I walked out here." Th Good
All
luck
right.
to the everyone
What are your
else.
top recommended items to include in an email to coaches for track or cross country besides times?
Mm, good. What events that you have ran them in? Okay, so that's another big one. Similar to what we talked about earlier, but like, where was it? Was it state qualifying? Was it state championship? Hey, I ran this at a region event. I ran this on XYZ, right? Include that just for context. Obviously tell them where you're from, what do you do, and what that looks like. Video is interesting with this because like there's a way, especially if you're a cross country runner. If you post the last 300, 400 meters of your race where you're closing and tracking someone down, that's impressive, right? Like that shows something. But if you post something in the middle, it's like,
Watch you run off the starting line. You're fresh.
yeah, yeah, right. Like, yeah, good question though.
Yeah, and so, like, here's the thing I'll tell you about track. For anything like track, cross country, anything that's times related, this would even go for swimming. It would count a little bit for golf because of scores. It would count for tennis because of UTR. The big thing with stats like that is that you show consistency, that you're able to do it over and over and over again, not just had one really good weekend. And so that's going to be critical for you as a track parent. Where should a parent start with getting my daughter basketball skills looked at? 8th grade, start having fun. You're like, it's still very, very early. You're not going to get exposure and offers and all that stuff right now. So I would enjoy the game. If you want to start getting some video posting on social media for fun, go for it. There will be plenty of time for you to do lots of not so fun exposure stuff later in the process. So for now, I would say, hey, just enjoy the game. 8th grade. Are SATs important anymore? Does it help?
Yes. It can help. Okay. So like we had an athlete that was a volleyball athlete, super brilliant individual, scored super high on the SAT, told coaches about this, and she was talking to a lot of high academic schools. So it really depends, right? Like if you go into high academic schools that you're talking to, yes, you're just going to get more money. They don't have to jump as high to try to get you in the door. If you're talking about just a average college, right? Then not really, because you already meet their criteria anyways, right? So it shouldn't be a problem getting you in and getting you a lot of money with academics alone.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. The only thing I would add is like an example story. A kid was looking at a service academy, right? And had the grades, was good enough. They wanted him. He really wanted to go there. Didn't have the SAT score. And they said, all right, we'll wait. It was SAT or ACT, I can't remember. And they said, okay, we'll wait for you to take it again. The kid studied hard, took like lessons before the SAT, ACT, took it and didn't score high enough. And Air Force literally just said, there's nothing we can do. I'm sorry.
Sure.
But again, top academic university, right? So the higher the level of academic rigor, the more they'll care about that stuff. Keep getting calls from NCSA about my 15-year-old son, you and everybody else. Swimmer qualified for state here in Michigan, former D1. I'm a former D1 baseball player that grew up in the late 90s, didn't need a recruiting service back in the day. Yeah. Those were the days, right? Those were the days back in the 90s. When do you attend a showcase or a camp? I have a freshman QB.
You said something that's really important, which is quarterback, right? Like it still falls under the same umbrella because you play quarterback. There's 1 to 2 positions that get filled every year. Okay, so like it becomes much more strenuous, just because when they find someone, the portal gets hit harder. So like going into sophomore year is a good time to start entertaining this if you want the experience. And so, Jack, you can kind of talk about this about like why you would go to a camp to start with. But going into sophomore year, leading into your junior season, is probably a great time. If you start to go too late, like now you're not on anyone's radar, but you have to have context before this. And so you have to have communication before this with coaches, and they have to give you some inclination that you're actually going to get an opportunity while you're there. So there's a lot of different factors that go into this decision making. Jack, please, you're awesome at this topic in particular. Like, why would you even go?
Here's my question. If you were to ask me or say, hey, I'm thinking about going to these events, what do you think? My first question would be, how did you choose those events? Like let's say we were in court and you had to defend your reasoning for why you choose a camp. 9 times out of 10, a family can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, well, we like the school, or, well, it's close, or, well, our high school coach recommended it. Like those are the reasons, which are shallow reasons. It's not a good reason to go spend $300, $500, $1,000, $1,500 if you're flying somewhere. It's not a good reason. So the first thing that I would say to anybody that's considering showcases and camps, which you all should be, because you're probably going to need to go to some of them. The first thing that I would say is you will save a ridiculous amount of money by asking this one question. What am I trying to accomplish at this camp or with this camp? Why are you going to the event? And if your answer is shallow, you're probably about to waste a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Now, if you can say, well, I'm going to this event because I've had multiple back and forths with the school. They said that they love my kid's video. Maybe we've had a phone call with them. They said they're recruiting our position in grad class. Okay, that's a legitimate reason. Maybe it's time to go to that event, right? But for most families, I think, Connor, the more that I'm thinking about this a lot, like pen and paper. Here's what I mean by pen and paper. If you can't write on a piece of paper right here, this is my notepad. I write on this all the time. So this is my notepad. If you can't take a pen and write down all of the reasons why you're going to an event, you're about to waste money. If you can't write down on a piece of paper exactly how you're going to get your kid a scholarship and the steps you're going to take to do that, you're probably not going to.
Yep.
There needs to be a plan. If you can put it on pen and paper, then you'll be in great shape. So like the social media workshop tonight, right? I'm going to lay out Exactly. You could take notes and put it on pen and paper if you want. Exactly how families tonight are going to use social media to get recruited. I'm going to lay it out. I'm going to show you the exact steps. Okay. D1scholarship.com/social media workshop. Registration closes in a couple hours. Point is, if you're going to an event or thinking about going to one, if you can't write that down, you're about to waste money.
Sure.
Now, what Connor is talking about with the reasons to go to an event, 3 reasons. Development, you think by going to the event, you're going to get better. 99% of camps are not that way. Okay. Second reason is experience. You know that in the future, your kid is going to have to play well in a pressure-filled environment, and you don't want that to be the first time they're in that environment. So you go to a couple events as an underclassman to get their feet wet. So when the pressure is on the line, they're ready to perform well. That's a great reason to go to an event as an underclassman, but you probably don't need to go to 70 of them. And then the third reason would be exposure or evaluation. You think that by going to an event, you're going to get on college coaches' radars. Most people, that's why they think they're going to an event, but they don't have real reasons for going to an event like that. Those are the only 3 reasons. If you can't write down why you're going to an event, and then the second thing I'd say is the percentage likelihood that that actually happens. If you can't do that, you're about to waste a bunch of money.
No doubt, no doubt. And I think what you had said about this goes back to his original question, which is like when and what that looks like. But look, essentially, if you're a freshman going into, that's probably falls into the experience category because you're probably going to have to do it again, right? So like, what does this look like? How does this really pertain to me? What are the other competition look like? How far off am I? Do I get some feedback at the end of this from college coaches? So pertaining to development. But if you're going to be recruited as a freshman, probably not a great reason.
Yeah. How you doing on time?
About to have to go. Yeah, it's a good segue. Guys, we had just a crushing of great feedback from the email workshop, and I can't stress enough that now you're taking the next step, which is social media. It's complicated. If you've never done it before, it's extremely complicated, but it is extremely valuable. And the more times that you can see the value in something and actually utilize it in a proper way that Jack's going to lay out to you guys tonight, like, please come. It's one of those things that we've seen really good athletes use it and get tremendous offers. We've also seen average athletes use it and get superb results. So just being able to utilize the platform that is so prominent today in recruiting is critical, and to do it across different streams. Anyone can send an email, right? Like if you were born within the last 50 years, you know how to send an email, right? But social media is one of the new ages that is critical for what you guys do now.
Boom. Nailed it. How wonderful.
On that note, go pick up my daughter. So you guys have an awesome day. It's great being here, obviously. Friday, do it again.
Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow, but you'll be back on Friday.
I'll be back Friday, guys. Awesome. See you guys.
Have a wonderful day. I'm going to answer this one last question, and then we'll bounce for the day. The question is, what is the best way to start the recruiting process as a freshman? Okay. So as a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, all 4 of them are going to have a different focal point. The focal point for freshmen is kind of twofold, actually. One is development. So getting bigger, faster, stronger, and more skilled is like the best thing that you can do as a freshman. Okay. So if you're a parent and you said, hey, Jack, where should I spend my time and resources, like money, on my kid as a freshman? My answer would not be go to a bunch of events. That would be a waste of money. My answer would be pour time, effort, money into their development, whether that's lessons or workouts or speed training or whatever it is for your sport. Spend on that, because that physical gap will really show itself when your kid gets into their sophomore, junior, senior year. The second focal point for freshmen is what we call flexing the muscle. Okay. So when you get into, we're going to talk about this, junior year, and you're in ramp mode where you're just full go, pedal to the metal. It's a lot easier to do that if you've already done some of that stuff before. So sending emails, posting content on social media, making highlight videos, like doing a little bit of that to dip your toe in the water freshman year is going to make it much easier for you to do a lot of that junior year. And so freshman year, I'd say, hey, go send 10 to 20 emails. Go post a couple times on social media. Go make a few recruiting videos. You're not going to get offers because of it. And that's okay. That's not the point. The point is to build that muscle so that you're ready to go. The second year, right, sophomore year, so 2028 right now, you're in what we call building the foundation. Building the foundation is where, when you're going to ramp at the end of sophomore year and going into junior year, and you're going to do a lot of it, that's a lot of work, guys. It's a lot of work. And so the best thing to do is to start building the foundation now so that you're taking on some of the work now rather than having to cram it all in a single month, right? And so if I said, hey, you can either fit, like 30 hours of work into one single month, or you can do, 6 months of an hour or something like that. The math, that's not the right math, but you get what I'm saying. The second half would be a lot easier, right? And so building the foundation is start doing some of the things that are going to allow you to ramp faster later on as a sophomore. Okay. So making highlight videos, getting more serious about social media, starting to build your target list and getting contact info, like all that stuff is critical. Okay. Then when you get to the end of sophomore year and into junior year, you're now into ramp mode. Ramp mode is where you are full go. That means contacting as many schools as possible through outreach, posting as much content on social media as you can, leveraging the few coach connections that you have, going to showcases and camps for schools that you're already talking to. Like, you are full go at that point in the recruiting process. And the same goes for senior year. You're still in ramp mode. So freshman year, flex the muscles and development. Sophomore year, build the foundation. End of sophomore year, you're into ramp mode. And then junior, senior year, you're into ramp mode big time. And so that's kind of what that looks like for each stage of the recruiting process. Thank you. Have a blessed day. You're welcome. Can I still go pro if I play D3? Yep, you can. All right, guys. Again, this is last call. Social media workshop. It's closing in what? An hour and 39 minutes. Registration closes. So if you're interested, this is the last chance. d1scholarship.com/social media workshop. It's tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. All ticket purchasers will get the recording of the call. They'll get the slides that I'm going to share tonight. And then they're going to get 100 like inspirational like posts, bios, pin tweets that you can copy or steal from. And then also it'll be about 45 to 60 minutes of structured teaching, followed by Q&A until everybody's questions are answered. I typically don't get off until everybody's questions are answered. So that's what we'll be doing tonight. Social Media 101 workshop. If you want to learn how to do that, come hang out. Last chance, d1scholarship.com/social media workshop. Hope you guys have a wonderful Tuesday. We will be back again tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. Always great to see familiar faces. If you guys want to come back, if this was helpful for you, come back, hang out. Tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, we'll be back. Hope you guys have a wonderful Tuesday, and we'll see you tomorrow.